Picture the scene. A British sailor is still buttoning his uniform. One guy is rubbing sleep out of his eyes. Someone else is yelling, "Load the cannons," and by the time the last man reaches the deck, the whole war is basically over. Not short over, but comically over. The kind of conflict that ends before the latecomer even knows where to panic. But that ridiculous stopwatch ending didn't begin with the battle. It began with a place, a very small place, off the coast of Africa. Zanzibar, a tiny island on the map with massive consequences. Britain loved hinges, anything that could connect routes and lock down trade. London kept a hand on the throat of commerce, calling it extremely important. That's imperial language for ours, actually, and they were strutting around. They had an empire so absurdly large it covered a fifth of the planet. The awkward part was what else sat in plain view: slavery. It wasn't hidden or rumored, it was built into the trade itself. By the 19th century, Britain had outlawed slavery and found a conscience. The abolition crowd pushed the machine until London wanted to look like a sheriff. The island sat in the Indian Ocean like a cash register with a harbor. Ivory moved through it, cloves moved through it, human beings moved through it. Rich merchants and local power brokers had whole fortunes tied to that traffic. That's the part people skip, because greed is not an abstract concept. It has warehouses, account books, and men counting coin with stained fingers. You can call it commerce or tradition, whatever helps you sleep at night. Underneath it, the engine is simple: land, labor, profit, and heirs. So Britain faced a choice: walk in and smash the whole system. That meant instant revolt, armed resistance, and a messy colonial war. The second option was cleaner on paper, with no dramatic invasion. We're not taking your island, we're merely enforcing civilization. They quietly decided which trade was legal and which ruler was acceptable. The British weren't wrong that slavery was brutal, but they weren't saints. Moral law and imperial leverage had finally become business partners. On Zanzibar's side, nobody with money wanted to volunteer for bankruptcy. A moral awakening sounds wonderful until it reaches your docks. Then principle becomes negotiable and legal language gets very slippery. Every succession crisis starts looking like a fight over the past. This is where the whole thing starts looking like stage management. Britain did not need to erase the Sultan overnight. That's not smart. Much better to leave the throne, the robes, and the polite little fiction. Keep the local ruler visible while moving the power somewhere else. On paper, Zanzibar still had its Sultan, but with a British stamp. Same palace, same titles, but a very different owner's manual. That kind of arrangement looks stable until the guy holding it drops dead. Then the illusion cracks in one ugly second, and the system fails. Sultan Hamad suddenly died, likely helped along by his own cousin. History loves family drama with a bit of poison in the cup. Their entire control mechanism failed because the intermediary was gone. Britain wanted a compliant ruler who was aligned with their commercial order. The other candidate was ambitious, hostile, and not interested in playing along. This was never just about who gets to sit on the throne. It was about who controls the customs house and the future taxes. One dead sultan turned every hidden dependency into a visible emergency. That is what systemic rot looks like, not dramatic flames at first. Clerks waiting for instructions that contradict each other, soldiers unsure whose orders count, courtiers changing sides before lunch, and merchants freezing their payments. Here is the creepy part: if you strip away the turbans and titles, this stops being an exotic palace drama and starts looking painfully modern. A local succession crisis, sure, but the real mechanism is familiar. Khalid saw it clearly, even if he was hardly a saint. In his eyes, birth made him legitimate, but Britain wanted things predictable. So when one sultan died, London's men pulled out the same old fork: the responsible man they could work with, or the one with his own ideas. And look at the visual here: not a parliament debating principle, not some clean constitutional handover, but a palace full of barricades, doors bolted, armed followers crowding the halls, men and women packed inside. One side believed the throne was inherited, while the other believed recognition mattered. That is the mirror, the crown, the election, the board appointment. The interim leadership memo, it changes costume every single century. The script does not. Whoever controls recognition controls reality. Britain had already talked Khalid down once before. That was the lesson. Step aside, keep the peace, avoid bloodshed, surrender now and call it prudence. So when the same pressure came again, he didn't hear diplomacy. He heard a replay, a second confiscation, a second public kneeling. That is how these moments harden, not because everyone is irrational, but because every actor thinks they know what the other side really means. By now, the British problem was bigger than one angry claimant. They needed the island to perform order, fast, cleanly, and publicly. Their preferred sultan had to appear inevitable because empire survives on magic. Once imperial demands are negotiable, the whole machine gets shaky. So the requests became firmer, the patience thinner, and the smiles slipped. You can almost see the final evening, consular rooms lit late. Notes passed, officers briefed, and merchants quietly warned to stay away. British families told to leave just in case, as if they didn't understand. That is the mirror image. Not war as chaos, but war as administration. Paper first, evacuation second, violence scheduled for the morning. And once a government begins clearing its own civilians, the argument is over. This is the part where modern people usually clap for the efficiency. 38 minutes, clean timetable, objective achieved, new sultan installed before lunch. Very efficient, very empire, but the stopwatch is the least important object. Look at the scene like a present-day investigator, not a Victorian admiral. A palace packed with thousands of backers, and barricades thrown up in a hurry. One aging shore battery that gets erased almost instantly by the guns. High explosive shells punching into walls, wood, cloth, and human bodies. Smoke thick enough to trap people inside, and a man claiming the throne. He decides, actually, no thanks, and bolts for the German embassy. That image alone is the verdict. The powerful had an exit, the loyal did not. And that is why the modern judgment lands so hard today. This was sold in the language of order, legitimacy, and treaty rights. All the polished phrases states love to use when cannons are loaded. But on the ground, what did restoring stability actually mean? It meant warships lining up and turning a dispute into a demolition job. It meant a clock on one side and panic on the other. It meant people paying in blood for decisions made by men who flee. Even the military imbalance feels obscene through a modern lens. One side had imperial gunboats, drilled crews, and explosive shells. The other had outdated weapons, confused formations, and useless courage. When return fire finally came, it barely scratched the paint. Today we would not call that a fair contest at all. We would call it overwhelming force used to make politics irreversible. Yes, slavery was later abolished, and that matters in the end. But modern judgment has room for two truths at once. A bad institution can be ended by a power acting in self-interest. Empire did not become morally clean because one outcome aligned with progress. It still moved through pressure, coercion, and the cold arithmetic of trade. Zanzibar was not just a moral cause, it was a strategic port. So the ruling from the present is not about the shortest war. When a government starts clearing civilians, the legal language is already decoration. The decision has been made, what follows is just impact and smoke. Men discovering too late that loyalty is cheaper than life. And once the shells stop, the cleanup begins in the most brutal way. And that is the nastiest punchline of all. Everyone says it was neat. Stopwatch history, cute trivia. But if you freeze the frame, it's not fun. It's a palace wall blowing outward, 500 shells slamming into stone. It's small boats trying to stop an empire, then vanishing instantly. It's a ruler sprinting for safety while his people catch the shrapnel. So yes, the British won fast, and empires love speed. Then came the paperwork, the replacement sultan, and the speeches about reform. Slavery was abolished, but let's not pretend morality arrived alone. It came riding in behind naval guns and diplomatic pressure. The palace burned, the flag came down, and a new system was installed. And this is where the story starts feeling horribly familiar. Different century, same operating system, foreign powers calling their interests stability. That's the curse. Humans do not really retire their worst ideas. We just give them better branding and shinier machinery. Zanzibar got the 19th century version, empire with a stopwatch. We get the modern one, satellites, press briefings, and clean graphics. The same old bodies under the rubble, new tech, old instincts.